Well,
Okay, now we're gonna start. I will give the talk to Hisham. So welcome with us, Hisham, and thank you for giving this talk for us.
thank you very much, Shakib. Thank you all for joining. There is a lot of hype around AI, so we thought let's have a well, we just have 1 hour, so it's not really a deep dive, but let's have a little conversation around AI in the enterprise. There is a big push in a lot of boardrooms to basically be more AI native. What does that mean for the organization? How do we go about it? Uh, we are basically approaching the end of the year, so a lot of budgets are being decided for the initiatives for next year. And I guess a lot of organizations uh, are basically saving a big percentage of their budget or dedicating a big percentage of their budget for AI initiatives. So let's look at what's the hype. What is AI all about? What can we do about it? What should we be scared about? And what should we sort of investigate? First, a little just intro about myself. My name is Hisham Human. I'm a lean agile coach. Uh, I uh, I am a computer scientist by education, so I've been introduced to AI fairly early in my education. I've built my first neural network back in I think 2005. So I've been an observer of AI for a while now, though not necessarily an active participant. I have developed a few AI enabled solutions. Uh, Basically, two that I'm mentioning here are Wiser, which is a tool for risk assessment used for predictive maintenance in oil wells, and Markival, which is a tool basically used to quantify how much business does holding a conference in our city give us. This is used by municipalities to basically give grants to people who are organizing conferences and large events. Uh, there is another one that's not mentioned here. Shakib just reminded me before the session. I co-founded a startup called Hamza, which was basically using natural language processing to develop a text correction engine for the Arabic language. We branded it as Grammarly for Arabic. This was back in 2016. So I have been involved with AI. I have been interested in AI. I've been trained in AI. Uh, Post LLMs, I haven't been in a setting where we used it for something useful at the enterprise level. At individual level, it can increase your productivity, but most of the implementation at the enterprise level, I haven't seen evidence of value yet. A lot of them are sort of struggling. So this is basically what prompts the conversation we're having right now. And if you'd like to connect, I am sharing my LinkedIn. I will also share the slides so you can reference them later if you are
We
interested.
we, I just a reminder. I will share all the links here in the chat on the chat, so you can just go and click on them. I will, like shared before the WhatsApp group of the community, I will share the LinkedIn of Hisham, my LinkedIn, and other stuff during the conversation. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. All right. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to mention is I don't know if you've heard of the Turk machine. This is the first recorded history where humans attempted to claim that they have basically created artificial intelligence. This was back in the 1700s. There was a machine that played chess, and it made around all the royal courts in Europe. A lot of people were interested in it because it played really well, and it managed to beat some of the best players, some of the best chess players at the time. So it was a novel thing. However, it was fake. It wasn't really a machine that's playing chess. It was just a person who's a good chess player and who's also a little bit small. So he could fit in a very small box here, and he had visibility on the moves that are being played, and he would manually control the hands of the puppet here so that it plays the moves against it. So in a sense, if you've seen the fake it until make it movement into AI, all these startups that claim to have AI solutions, but in the back end, they have a person basically solving it manually. This is not an invention of the years 2000 or of the digital age. This is something that was as old as the concept of AI itself. So fake AI has been with us as long as AI has been with us. And for people who have been following AI before the hype right now, it wasn't a very well respected discipline in a sense. It was seen as a waste of time. A lot of very competent engineers, when they would be interested in AI, because the concept is very interested, a lot of them were basically advised by their professors, don't go into AI. There is no future in AI. This was a very common theme that you would hear a lot. Now, obviously, right now, there is too much future maybe in AI. But at the point that was the impression that most people have. Now, yeah, okay. So few things that we probably need to keep in mind when we are evaluating the use of AI. A lot of time, just because everybody is doing something, or just because there is a high demand for something, we assume that something is useful. And this is basically like a gold rush. There is a famous saying that when there is a gold rush, the best business you can start is selling shovels. Now, if a lot of people are buying shovels from you, it doesn't mean there is gold in that mountain. It just means there is a lot of demand. And we are sort of in a similar situation right now. There is a lot of demand for AI solutions, for AI tools, for AI enablement. But that itself does not necessarily mean that there is value in AI. So if we want to really evaluate, is AI useful for us or not, we cannot just use the demand, because sometimes people demand something just because it is famous. Like I'm old enough to basically be part of agile transformations or product management transformations, where the logic in most organizations is we want to do it because all the cool kids are doing it. We are actually doing it because we have the budget for it. Like nowhere in the equation, nowhere in this decision tree are we evaluating if it is the right fit for us. And that could lead us in a lot of bad directions, not necessarily because the solution itself is bad, but because the solution is highly customizable and it can take us in a lot of different roles. So if we don't have a very good definition of what's good for us, we might end up going a lot of places that are not necessarily useful for us. I will leave time at the end for questions, but if you have like a burning question, don't hesitate. You can write it in the chat or just raise your hand, and we can take the time. But again, before we dive even more into like within the enterprise, there are a few questions that a lot of people have in mind. The idea that AI will take our jobs. Now, I don't have an answer for that. I don't think anybody has an answer for that. There is a lot of people promoting the scare that AI could potentially take your job. But I want to remind you of two paradoxes that have existed even before AI. Jevons paradox, it's the idea that whenever we develop a technology, we also develop an appetite for that technology. That means imagine people before the invention of trains. Once trains were invented, you could safely assume that people will not spend that much time traveling because now travel can be faster. But the fact that travel became easier and faster made us invent more reasons for us to travel. So now we spend a lot more time traveling than people in the 1900 used to, even though traveling right now is a lot easier. You could see the same thing like for energy, for example, energy resources. The more energy resource we're able to extract, the more usage we find for energy. You, I think probably most of you have famously heard that the computer that NASA used in order to send people to the moon had less computational ability than our own personal phones right now. The thing is, at that point, that was seen as a lot of computational power because they had very limited usages for it. But as we started developing our capability, our computational ability, we also developed our appetite. Now we create games. Now we basically watch movies. With the advent of internet, we started streaming movies. So every time there is a technology, it also developed an appetite for more usage that we don't necessarily think about at the beginning. So AI could replace what you're currently doing, some of it maybe, but it will also create an appetite within the society for more things that we can't think of right now. So I wouldn't be too worried from this side. The other one is there is a Moravec paradox, which basically states that things that you do on a like on a casual basis every time, you start underestimating the complexity of these things. A lot of times, we basically, when we are impressed with with an AI, we are impressed with it doing some of the stuff we consider hard. But at the same time, I think most of us probably had this experience. We're also surprised by how often it gets certain very basic things wrong. Like before LLMs, if you were to basically talk about what are the key thing that differentiate a human from a machine. Now, playing chess would have probably been like higher on the list. We think that playing chess is a very hard thing, but we don't think that walking is a very hard thing. And yet the capability to basically play chess was solved a lot earlier because it was a lot easier for a machine to do than the capability of walking. It took a lot more resources and a lot more advancement before we were able to basically create a machine that could walk. And even then, the machine could walk under specific set of circumstances. Once you take it out on the terrain, it becomes a little bit harder for it. So some of the stuff that are intuitive to us might be extremely hard for the machine. And part of like our journey now, because we are sort of in the Wild West at the moment, part of the journey now is trying to figure out which of the things that we can easily do, the machine cannot, so that we can better complement each other. And maybe another key point to just keep in mind is a lot of people are worried about the AI replacing employees, but you could, like, if that's potentially true, you could also be worried about the AI replacing the enterprise. If I'm the head architect of an organization, what do I need the organization for? I can just use AI to basically create the product. I can use the AI to create a marketing plan. I can use the AI to create draft legal documents. So if it is truly replacement, the employee is as much as risk as the enterprise itself. Is this point clear, or does anyone has a question on this side before we move on? No? All is good? Thumbs up or
I was looking on the reaction. Actually, it's all good, all good. It's
all good?
maybe just people when they think about AI will be replacing jobs. Maybe they more talking about those repetitive jobs like call centers, like I don't know, maybe those tasks they can
Yeah.
be easily automated by AI. Maybe
Yeah.
this is the point, or this is the discussion about AI be replacing the human.
Yeah, there is a famous example. This is pre-AI, but the same principle applies. There was basically a lot of hotels when trying to optimize their costs would get rid of basically the concierge. The concierge is the person sitting in front of the door or in the elevator that just basically clicks the floor for you, or that just opens the door for you. Now they created like systems that just sense that you're in, that can basically automatically do that for you, and they figured that they can get rid of the person, because what they did is that they limited what that utility is. They defined a very specific job, and they thought that that's the only thing that this person is doing. And since now we have a machine that can do this, then we no longer need this person. But what they've realized is a lot of people basically develop a personal relationship with that concierge. A lot of frequent customers become like first name basis with this concierge. This concierge remembers them. This concierge basically remembers their preferences. This concierge can basically give them advice about where to go, things that are happening in the city. So there were a lot of utilities that are not necessarily so easily documented that a concierge used to do. And what happened in a lot of hotels that got rid of this useless functionality is their business started plummeting. Because they haven't figured out that there are other things that this human could do that we did not necessarily value. Similarly, when you think about call centers, if it is just about logging your call, logging your request, and then solving the issue, you could say that you can automate a lot of that. But there might be a lot of things in the human connection that are potentially useful depending on the type of business that you are in. For example, if you're a hotel business, then the human experience is core to your business offering. So touching that actually hurts you a lot more than the savings you get from one less concierge. Similarly, depending on the type of business, the call center might actually serve different purposes. In fact, you will find something, for example, digital banking, when you're offering digital services for banks, for bank users. Uh, the drive is toward automating a lot of processes so that they're like as streamlined as possible. But what you will notice for basically banks that are managing high wealth individuals, they don't automate, because once the customer becomes very important, that personal touch also becomes important. So the increase in efficiency is no longer something that we care about in different settings. So it's very important to try to look at our context in order to decide if that optimization is good for our business or not.
Fair enough. Maybe the big thing we can learn from this is that empathy cannot be bring by AI.
Which was it, Shakib?
Empathize.
Empathy. Yeah, I would even say it maybe a little bit differently. We don't understand empathy enough for us to automate, because we might identify empathy as, I know that you're upset, or I know that you, and we can say, yeah, I have developed a sentiment analysis system and it is able to do that. But once we do that, we start basically realizing there is another gap that we need to consider. Similarly, like the idea of intelligence, like we had a very simplistic, like the Turing test for identifying if a machine is intelligent or not. But now with the advent of LLM, that doesn't seem enough for us. And we're developing a lot of metrics. And every time a new metric is developed, LLM new models are trained on that specific metric. They start basically outperforming humans, but we also start better understanding where their limitations is. And we will try to discuss these things a little bit. Now, one of the things that I think are very important and are potentially getting lost with the use of LLM, because if I have a problem, I just jump to basically what is the solution to this? And that is not a very good thing. And I can give you a very simple example of why that is a bad thing. try to think of a real problem that you are currently facing. Like, for example, now within the context where we live, right now in Morocco, for example, there are a few protests around. So imagine if you went to basically ChatGPT and you said, well, as an individual, how can I help make things a little bit better? Now, ChatGPT will give you an answer that looks really, really good. And you might be impressed and you might start thinking that, well, they're really intelligent. But first draft solutions for anything, any business rarely work. There is always a follow-up. So what happens is if you really try to implement the recommendation of ChatGPT, then you're going to have like feedback coming from the environment where you are. And if you try to basically tell that to the AI, what's going to happen is the AI is regenerating a new solution altogether. So it's very hard for him to preserve the context of the first suggestion. So if you do that a few rounds, you might get the AI to start giving you contradictory advices, because preserving the context is very, very expensive to the way LLMs are currently, the architecture of LLMs is currently set up. It's very good at first draft solution. In fact, I think there is a study by OpenAI that tried to compare pitch decks developed, like consulting pitch decks developed by humans and developed by different models. And well, although ChatGPT's own model performed less than humans, ChatGPT, what's it called? Anthropic's model performed the same way as humans. So people preferred human pitch decks, human developed pitch deck, expert developed pitch deck to the ones developed by ChatGPT, but they were like, they had the same evaluation of the ones developed by humans and the ones developed by Anthropic. But what's missing here is that this is the first draft. Once you try to implement and you get the feedback and you want to start implementing changes, that is where AI start breaking out very quickly. That is why you need to have a proper understanding of the AI from your own side. In fact, there is a new term that's been introduced now. When you're developing a solution, tech debt used to be an issue. Probably tech debt right now is less of an issue, because translating something that works from, let's say, one language to another, from one framework to another, from one design to pattern to another, is relatively easier, relatively straightforward, and there are a lot of tools that can make that a little bit easier for you. But the cognitive load now is becoming more of an issue. That means, how much of the solution do you understand? Because how much of the solution do you understand is going to help you better evaluate if it is going in the right direction or the wrong direction. And because it's a lot faster to develop things with AI, that doesn't change how fast we learn things. And it doesn't change how fast an organization learns things. That's always slow. So you might have something that's doing like a very complex thing, a software, for example, or a solution that's handling a very complex situation, but our understanding as individuals, as team, as organization, did not yet catch up to the level at which the solution is. So this cognitive load, if you don't basically bridge it, there is going to come a point where your system is going to break in ways that you cannot explain and you cannot understand, and it is also beyond basically repair. Like it wouldn't be economically viable for you to basically try to repair it. But the reason I wanted to basically mention some of the core algorithms is because they remain true whether you are using AI or developing AI. And it just basically tries to explain where we are in a sense. Initially, algorithms is basically a set of instructions in order to get a result. Basically, you decide that you need something, you go through a series of steps, and then at the end, you get a certain result. And there were different approaches that we can do to get a solution. The easiest to implement is brute force. if you want to basically figure out what the solution is, try everything. One of them is going to work if there is a solution. The problem with brute force, like the benefit of brute force, is very easy to implement. Like you can just start directly and try things out. The problem with brute force is you might not have enough time to basically create this. Like imagine if I tried to create this presentation using brute force. That means I have to try randomly selecting every word, randomly selecting every sentence, randomly selecting every slide. The chances that I will actually create this presentation is going to take ages. Like that's not really feasible. So brute force is not always viable, as in it doesn't guarantee that you will reach a solution within your lifetime. But if you're able to really brute force, it guarantees that you will find a solution if there is one. Divide and conquer. Sometimes you decide, okay, instead of tackling the entire problem, I'm going to divide it into pieces and I'm going to try to solve each piece. It's a much more efficient way of solving problems. The problem is you need to know that when you're dividing stuff, you're not losing information. This is where from architecture, the concept of modularity and low cohesion comes into place. You have to have enough understanding which parts of your system can be broken and which parts cannot. So for example, a car is designed in such a way that you can take off a tire and put in another tire, and it's not really going to have that much of an effect, so long as it's the same size. But if you take, for example, an engine and you put another engine, that's going to create a lot of problems because there are a lot of integrations inside the car between the engine and a lot of other things. And it's very hard to ensure that a random new engine that you select is also going to fit really neatly and occupy the same amount of space with the same amount of dimension. So these thoughts are things you're going to have to keep in mind when you're trying to develop a solution. That's one of the challenges with basically divide and conquer. How well do you understand your system to be able to break it into parts? Greedy algorithms are situations where you basically try to make decisions, the best decision at any specific instant. So what that means is, imagine that, let's say, I have a bag and I want to basically fill it with the most amount of, let's say, jewelry. And let's say I have a limited amount of weight that I can take. So I can say, okay, I'm just going to take the most expensive jewelry, and then I'm going to take the second most, and then I'm going to take the third most. Now, the problem with that is that last item that I will take that's going to fill my capacity, it might be less value than the next two items, like both in weight and value. So in a sense, if I had skipped and took the other ones, then I would have made a lot more money. So greedy algorithm puts you in situations where you're finding a local optimal, and sometimes you might miss global optimal. The reason why this is relevant for us, because the way LLMs are set up is that when they generate something for you, they will always generate the most likely next word. And they keep generating the most likely next word, the most likely next word. What that means is they're sort of implementing a greedy approach because they assume the most likely next word, the combination of it, is going to give you the best paragraph. Few advances are trying to basically think a little bit more ahead and all of that, but still there are no categorization. So it's good, like there are always trade-offs. Entropy based is when you try to basically increase your ability to predict things, like better identify what sort of features help you better understand which direction you need. Algorithm, in a sense, you might have an idea about which direction the solution is going to take, but you give the algorithm the ability to basically learn and optimize the way it's finding a solution. Now, all these elements, they existed when we were basically developing just sorting algorithms. And they still exist now if you're developing LLMs or if you're developing expert systems. And they also exist if you are basically using them. But you have to understand the trade-offs. None of them is perfect in all cases. There are situations when it's just easier for you to brute force. There are situations where it's better for you to divide and conquer. You need to know that it is possible, and then basically figure out what the cost is going to be. Sometimes a greedy approach is good enough. Like there are a lot of optimization algorithm that just basically aim for getting like 70% accuracy or 80% accuracy. And in some businesses, that might be okay. Like, for example, if you're drafting an email or drafting a copy, you don't need it to be exact, like, because there is no one right answer. Just any approximation that doesn't have any very, like, you're not insulting your customers, for example, or making some very bad commitments or something like that. So long as you're not doing that, that's within the acceptable range. So what's gonna carry with us is the need to basically understand these trade-offs. If we lack that understanding of trade-offs, then we might not know when the algorithm is taking us, or when the LLMs or the AI that we are using is taking us in the wrong direction. Now, from evolutionary, basically, algorithms came, like, developed the concept of machine learning, where we now have an algorithm that also has the capacity of recognizing patterns, and based on these patterns, they are basically starting to learn. The problem you're going to see as we move with the development of AI is we understand less and less about how the AI is making their decision. So if you talked about, for example, some of the project that I talked about risk modeling that I've worked on, if you asked me how did the system evaluate the risk assessment to be this specific number, I can consult the logs and tell you, okay, these are the parameters used, and this is how we came to that conclusion. But as we progressed with machine learning, and then from machine learning to neural networks, somebody just looked at how the human brain is set up. We have nodes and we have connections, and each node can store some sort of information. And then the connection between the nodes help you make a decision. And the connection that you use more gets strengthened. The connection that you use less gets a little bit weakened. They try to model that in computers, and it gave them sort of acceptable result. It wasn't anything too fancy. The real advantage came in from deep learning, where we started, like, we created a neural network, and then we layered it on top of it a lot of additional neural networks. And each neural network is trying a lot of stuff, like using all the algorithms we talked about to basically come up with some sort of recommendation or some sort of weight. And then the other one is doing the same, and then the other one is doing the same. And the combination of all of that tells you what the end result is. And that is something that we cannot investigate as humans, because it's not very easy to just pinpoint one parameter and say, well, this is why it made this decision. It's a combination of, like, depending on the size of the neural network, it's a combination of all these nodes, all of their connections. And here we're talking billions of basically nodes and connections and patterns that could exist. Generative AI, the way it's currently set up with LLMs, is even less susceptible to understandability. Like, it's much harder for us to understand what is the thought pattern that they went through in order to basically reach this recommendation. There are even, like, some cases, unfortunate recent cases, where I think a teenager in the US used ChatGPT, and he was contemplating suicide. And basically the AI was giving them hint and suggestions on how to successfully perform a suicide. Now, nobody anywhere in any of the organizations developing LLM was basically working on the problem, how can we successfully, like, perform suicides? Like, this is just a byproduct of the fact that we have a lot of things that are interconnected that we don't necessarily know how they work, but we realize that the result that they give has value, but it is less controlled and less understandable. So basically, the key takeaway I want you to have from this slide is that as AI, the way it is currently designed, becomes more capable, it becomes less explainable. And this raises a lot of issues we're going to try to talk about. I'll try to wrap up things a little bit faster here. Now, at an enterprise level, it doesn't change the basics. If you want to use a technology for it to be useful for you, you have to use it somewhere where it adds value. I'll give you an example. Imagine that you have a problem that it takes you too long to reach your office. Like basically the travel from your home to the office is taking you 1 hour or 1 hour and a half. That is the problem you have because the speed of travel for you is slow. Now, imagine if I were to give you a car that's a better technology and it goes faster. Would that necessarily solve your problem? Would that help you reach your office faster? That depends. It will help you if you're already traveling at the limit of the speed of your current car. But if your current car, you're not actually using it at the limit of the speed, and basically the main constraint that you have is actually in the traffic, a better car, a faster car, is not going to help you reach there faster. Similarly, as an organization, when you decide you want to use AI, you need to identify where your constraint is. And a lot of people start thinking, my constraint is in development, for example, if you're developing solutions. And therefore, I need a lot of tools to basically help the developers develop faster. For example, Copilot and stuff like that. But if you really map out the value stream from the point where the organization decides that they want to do something all the way until the user is actually benefiting from it, most of the time you will find that there is a big delay between when we wanted to do something and when we went through all the approvals in order to basically budget for it and start. So that's not going to change just because the developers are developing faster. Or sometimes you have a lot of wait between the time where you developed something and the time where it went through all the compliance and approvals necessary in order to deploy it. Now, the fact that you are developing more is not going to help you deploy more, and therefore is not really necessarily going to add value to the user. In fact, what it might create is a situation where now the developers are creating a lot more stuff, so much more that by the time the last thing they developed is pushed to production, they're already developing something a little bit different. And that creates a lot more problem. Like if you work in DevOps or in operation, you will understand that merging a lot of different codes can be a huge headache. Now imagine a situation where we're trying to solve that by giving the people who are creating this stuff the ability to create a lot more stuff. So that's not going to solve the problem of delivery. That's just going to create a lot more merge conflicts and a lot of different ways for the problem to materialize. That being said, if you identify something that's really a constraint within the organization, the tools available to you as at the enterprise level to solve this, you can use LLMs, large language models. The problem with LLMs is that they're not specific to you. They're basically, they have like a bias on the average of the word. So if you're not average in one way or another, if you're not like the rest of the world in one way or another, then a lot of the recommendation that is going to give you is not necessarily going to fit. Alternatively, organizations start doing RAGs, retrieval augmented generation. And that is a situation where you start basically feeding the LLM with documents that are specific to you, documents that you have vetted, that are correct by your definition, that have good quality, and you want the LLM to give more weights to the answers that are coming from here. This doesn't completely remove the possibility of hallucination that exists with LLMs, but at least it makes it a little bit less likely. The main problem organizations are going to have is, well, that source of truth, like those documents that you really identify as being a good source. That takes a lot of work, and that's not necessarily always ready. Like I'll give you an example. Imagine that you just wanted to a RAG used on basically the laws of a specific country. Then you're going to have to basically get that document about the most up-to-date documents. And it's very easy to get the most up-to-date laws of a country that is in book form. but getting them in digital form might be very challenging depending on where you are. And you're going to have the problem of ensuring that the laws are always maintained up to date, that there is nothing that has been changed. So there are a lot of issues. It's not a simple task of ensuring the quality of the RAG system that we developed. The last option is AI agent. It's when you give the AI agency to do things on your behalf. It could be just simple stuff. Go visit this website, go book this appointment. But it can be a little bit more dangerous, like make this transaction. So the level of control that you give is up to you and what you integrate it with. And the thing is, it's still using the same type of technology. There is still the possibility that it hallucinates. So your guardrails for it not doing something that actually destroys your business become a lot more important. So whenever you're developing an AI agent, how do you ensure that that AI agent is reliable and is not going to end up doing something crazy? Imagine, for example, a system that controls, for example, the electricity grid in a city. It's now controlled by humans and they monitor it. Imagine if you give that to an AI agent where they can decide to generate more electricity here or transfer it here. If you give it to an AI, maybe it will optimize it for a while, but then there is also a chance that it maybe will overheat one generator, it will flood some place. So it can create problems for you because it is not exact. So that is something that you're going to have to basically work on and define what's your definition of quality. Ensure that you have the proper things set in place to basically stop it from doing things that you don't want it to do. Just a few examples. I think we can skip this one. You can use it in customer support. Problem here is, are you making commitments that you cannot honor? So that's probably some regulatory compliance. This is very strict. Like you cannot make an error here, or else you might be in a situation where you can lose your license, or you might have a lot of liability. Enterprise search, this is relatively easy. It is something that's sort of solved, but with LLMs, instead of basically us just searching a ready-made document, we can compile a summary of a bunch of documents depending on the type of question that you have. So enterprise search is potentially a very good and safe use case for an organization to start because the margin for error is a little bit larger. Like you are basically given a search to your own employees. They have enough understanding in case basically the AI messes up. Process automation, you can also use it there. The advice with automation is the same as before AI as after AI. You should never automate something that you don't understand, because the purpose of automation is reducing the cost of change. You want to make it easier for you to change the thing that you do to respond to the market. So if you have an automated process that you don't understand, then when you change it, how do you ensure it's still the same quality? If you don't understand it, it's very hard for you to basically make that evaluation, which makes the cost of change higher for you, which doesn't give you the flexibility that automation was supposed to do, to give you. There are, I think, 2 more slides. Yeah. And then we can stop and open for questions. Now, the concept of responsible AI is being introduced. Whether you're using it or whether you're developing it, you need to have an understanding about how responsible the AI is for you. How trustworthy is it? Like privacy concerns. Imagine that you are a government and you use an LLM for your employees. Now, everything they write is visible somewhere. So where is that data hosted? Is it somewhere that's governed by your laws? It's not just where is it stored, it's also in transition. When basically data is being transferred from one place to another, what are the servers that is going to go to? These are all concerns that your governance is going to have to look into to ensure that you're not exposing yourself to things that you don't want to expose yourself to. It has to be explainable. Imagine a situation where you have, let's say, an autonomous vehicle and it made a turn somewhere and ended up hitting someone and somebody died. who's liable at that situation? How was that decision made? It's very critical to basically understand the thread of reasoning that led to a specific decision, that led to a specific action. It has to be traceable. It has to be something that can be documented. Otherwise, you open up yourself for a lot of liability in a lot of situations. Human-centric, at the end, basically, it's your people that are going to be using this solution. If it is like, I'll give you a simple example. A lot of organizations, for example, they haven't worked out the trustworthy and the explainable part. So their policy is none of our developers can use AI. Now, that might sound smart in theory if everybody is going to automatically comply. But in practice, what happens is when you block these roads, developers are just going to independently go and try to use these tools, which exposes you a lot more to the trustworthy and explainable issues. Now, looking ahead, I think the key points that I think are going to be very important, the definition of quality. I think I'm going to share a link here. This is a website I created. It took about 10 minutes using a tool called Lovable. Now, the idea is I try to cover the topics that we discussed, and you can see that it looks very impressive for a first draft. But then once you get to, let's say there are numbers here, there are information here about market share, my concern becomes how accurate is the information? Now, the tool itself, I cannot necessarily trust it that the information is accurate. And that's not the only problem. The problem is a business has to survive through time. So it's not enough for me to know that it is accurate now. It is also important for me to basically guarantee that it's going to remain accurate through time. And this is not something that AI can do really well. AI in security, for example, is a good attacker, but it is not a good defender. Because in attack, you can make mistakes. You just have to find one good solution. But in defense, you cannot make a mistake. That is kind of the trade-off that you're gonna always have when you're using AI. Yeah, I guess this is all that I wanted to basically share. I took a little bit longer than I thought I will, but I think we still have some time for questions.
I think you forgot about the second website you built with AI.
Oh, yeah. So this one took even less time. I did not even correct the prompt at all.
For Arabic speakers, you can find this one. It was vibe coded. As Hisham said, it was prompt coded, not even vibe coded.
Yeah,
so yeah,
actually, yeah, I'm not affiliated with Lovable, but I would recommend it. It has a very low barrier of entry. You can just write simple text. It'll create something that's good for you. Now, the problem you'll see, even in this, for example, poems, is, well, how do I know that this is a poem said by this guy? Because if you're a website that basically doing poetry, your core business is not just the website. Your core business is how true the information is. And that's not something that the AI can do for me. I have to develop that expertise myself to ensure that all these punctuations here are actually correct. All the order of the verses are actually correct. You will see here that because it was automatically prompted, it did not actually pull the entire poem. It just pulled part of it. So it's my job to go and try to look for an up-to-date version of the poem. And you will find if you work in this type of content, there is always multiple versions. It's not just one version. Sometimes some verses are changed, sometimes some orders are changed. So it doesn't change the fact that you need some expertise in order for you to develop a good business. In fact, even startups, for example, that are leveraging AI really well are the ones where you have the founder or a very small group of people that are able to understand the whole picture. And that's why they're able to use AI. So they're successful, not just because the AI is strong, The AI is strong and they have the right expertise to evaluate what's correct and what's not. And that puts them in a situation where they can succeed. If you don't necessarily understand the value that AI is bringing, then you'll find yourself in a lot, not in a good place, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hisham. Thank you for the attendees. Now we're gonna open I think we are just in time. It's actually the hour. The hour is finished, but we can take more than 1 hour to maybe answer some question from the attendees, and then to sum up and leave you to come back to your work or whatever you are doing. So yeah, questions are open, and
I have one question, please.
yes, of course, Bashir.
Bashir?
Khoya Hisham, in a world where everyone is rushing for AI, if you have, for example, a co-founder or you are an employee and your boss or your co-founder tells you that we need to implement AI just because we can, and this is the future and everyone is talking about it. So in this rush of AI, how do you, even if you're not convinced that the AI is the solution, how do you, like, what is your position? What position would you take in this certain situation? Because you can, you can try to choose to suggest other solutions other than AI, but is in this big rush that we are seeing in multiple companies and in this AI bloat. How would you behave either as a employee or as a
Yeah, good question, Bashir. And like this is a common problem, like it surfaces in different ways. And maybe like I obviously don't have a correct answer because everybody's gonna basically try different things. But one recommendation that I have here is get inspired from the idea of divide and conquer. And the idea here is from what you said, Bashir, you don't have one problem. You have at least two problems. First problem is what's good for the company, and second problem is how do I convince my co-founder? And a lot of time we get stuck trying to solve both of them at the same time. So imagine going to a co-founder that believes strongly in AI, and you don't have yet another solution or another alternative. So it's a losing battle for you because he knows what he wants, and you're trying to basically convince him not to do it while not having an alternative that you believe in as strongly. So what I would recommend is solve these two problems separately. There is the problem of what needs to be done, and that is something you need to tackle. You need to allocate time for, understand your business, understand what's really needed, and try to basically improve your understanding of what needs to be done. And at the same time, try to basically better understand your co-founder. Because when he says, I want AI, maybe what he really wants is he wants speed. Maybe what he really wants is he wants innovation. So try to pick the type of things, the type of values that he sees. Maybe he just wants branding. Like you could have a situation where, like, and a lot of organizations did that. You want AI in order to develop a chatbot, and the chatbot is just going to be answering some FAQ questions. Well, it's a lot easier for me to just create that in a tree, and it's ready in like a day. And I'm going to give you the value that you want. I'm just not necessarily using the tool that you have recommended because it gives me a little bit more flexibility. So try to divide the problem. Don't bite the whole thing at once, because basically the idea, don't bite more than you can chew. Does that help, Bashir, a little bit?
Yes, amazing.
Okay. Thank you.
We have some messages on the chat. So for people who attended in some late, could you please confirm that you can see the links shared on the chat before, like LinkedIn of Hisham, the WhatsApp community group? So if you can confirm this, just it will be amazing. Bashir, can you see those links shared previously in the
For
chat?
me, I don't see them. I didn't join from the beginning,
Yes,
so
yes, yes.
I only see the first message is the lovable link.
Okay, okay. I will share the LinkedIn of Hisham and the WhatsApp community group. Okay. So here they are. So for those who attended late, they can find them and they can join us on WhatsApp. The meetup or the presentation is recorded and will be shared on the WhatsApp community group. And I guess we have some 10 minutes we can spend together. So if you have questions, please go ahead. We are more happy.
Maybe Shakib, we can thank everyone and stop the recording.
Yes.
Then we can open a conversation. Then maybe people are a little bit more willing to.
Yeah. That's a good point. Good point. So thank you everyone for attending. It was amazing. And yes, I will stop and open the discussion for everyone.